Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Laura Tavares. I'm from Mosaic Lowell and just wanted to do a very quick welcome to everyone who's joined us. And then a special thank you and gratitude to Olivia and Tanya, our presenters today from Outside the Vox. If you did want or need closed captioning, that should be enabled for you to turn on. And I also wanted to point out that we have two ASL interpreters joining us this evening, Julie, who's on screen interpreting right now, and Amy. So Mosaic Lowell, just a very quick intro of what we are. We are the creative economy plan for the city of Lowell. So what we look to do is we support creatives and artists and culture bearers living and creating in the city of Lowell, in addition to helping to advocate for the sector and elevating all of the wonderful things that are occurring in our city in terms of arts, culture, and special events. So encourage folks, if you're not familiar with Mosaic Lowell, to look at our website, mosaiclowell.org, take advantage of the resources. If you're not from the Lowell area, maybe check out some events and come and visit us. So with that, I am going to toss it over to Tanya.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, Olivia and I are from Think Outside the Vox, and today we'll be talking about social media and accessibility around social media practices. So, first, we'll start by introducing ourselves, and then Olivia will be discussing image descriptions and how image descriptions are special. Then she'll be interweaving cultural competency into that very helpful and rich description. Then we will kick it over to me, and I will be discussing screen reading technology and how they interact for users with visual impairments and others, how they're able to help the process of navigating social media, online content, mobile content, you name it. I'll also do a brief demonstration of a screen reader on an actual website, and you'll be able to hear and see how the screen reader is navigating the space as I control it with my keyboard. Then I will discuss alternative text, and that is a textual image description, but it's a little bit different than the image descriptions purely that we'll be discussing in the very beginning. Next, I'll be referring to camel case, emojis, and hashtags, and those are certainly tools that all of us use to make our marketing content more engaging, but I'll be explaining how screen readers interact with those and some do's and don'ts around that. And then Olivia's going to go ahead and talk about captions and all of their intricacies, including where to position them and how to format them font wise and so much more. Then we'll be doing a wrap up, and after that, we will go ahead and jump right into Q&A at the very end. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my own image description, and then I'll kick it over to you, Olivia. So again, my name is Tanya. I identify as a white woman. I'm in my 30s, and I have dark brown hair featuring blonde highlights and sky blue eyes. Today, I'm wearing a white cable knit sweater with kind of a stripe pattern. Behind me is a window leading to my front porch. Nothing too exciting out there. You might see a window or possibly a table behind me on the porch. My hair reaches my shoulders and I'm of average build, standing at 5 feet 3 inches. I also generally wear my thick prescription glasses, which are round and pretty shiny, though I also enjoy wearing my Meta-Ray glasses when it's sunny out there. And speaking of marketing content, they are a nice tool. Also, I'm from Serbia and I enjoy voice acting and making the world a more accessible place with Think Outside the Vox and my small business, getbraille.com. And so, Olivia, feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Tanya. Hi, my name is Olivia Reinebach. I also go by Via, VIA. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager at Think Outside the Vox. Think Outside the Vox is an arts accessibility nonprofit that trains and consults theaters, museums, artists, educators, and arts institutions on best accessible practices. Vox also trains and mentors deaf, blind, and disabled artists, access providers, and consultants on how to deliver and advocate for culturally competent access work in these different spaces. Before we jump into image descriptions, I also want to reiterate that Tanya and we represent one person in the deaf community and one person in the blind community. So if you've heard it before, if you've met a deaf person, that means you've met a deaf person. So we can't speak for every single deaf and blind experience, but today we are bringing our professional and personal experiences both as users of social media, as users in the digital world who rely on accessible features, and as creators in the digital space. So you'll see I have an asterisk next to my description, and it's there on purpose. I would consider this my baseline. If you're looking at me in the camera now, you'll see that my hair is definitely past my ears, unlike my headshot. So visual features like short versus long hair are subject to change. Another part that may change is the context. You know, we're here at this webinar, we're talking about a variety of features. I have identity markers written in my description, so you'll see hard of hearing and Latinx. Off the bat, that tells you I am approaching and delivering content from a few different lenses. So I'll go ahead and read my baseline description now. It says, a hard of hearing mixed Latinx with olive skin and dark curly brown hair. These identity markers are also a succinct but pretty clear way of telling you I'm going to approach and deliver and understand all these concepts that we're about to dive into with a very specific lens. If this were a webinar about deaf experience, I might include a little bit more in my self-description about my deafness and maybe say I wear hearing aids. The description, it's a quick and impactful way to let you know what kind of perspective I'm bringing to the table. And later, I'm going to talk about cultural competency and how that's related in this access point. But for now, let's go to our next slide and talk about image descriptions. They are visual details and context. So if I were to write, oh, and I'll say ID for shorthand for image description because I'm going to say it a lot. For this specific headshot, I'm going to add things about my clothing, my expression, and the details of my features. So I'm wearing makeup in this headshot. I'll read my updated one here. Olivia, a hard of hearing mixed Latinx with olive skin and short, dark, curly brown hair, wears a white shirt, black blazer, gold chain, small gold hoops, and makeup, smiling. So those are the things I've added. My expression, my clothing. Following an order, like the one I have written down here, is a great way to streamline this image description writing process. So I'll go ahead and read this checklist for you. We have name, identifiers slash demographics, skin tone or features, hair, we have clothing, maybe accessories, and expression. Now, this structure is great for my headshot because that's all that's in this photo. But what if I had a little bit more? What if the background mattered? Well, here's another example. Now, there's a lot on this next slide, but I'd like you to jump to the bottom and go ahead and listen or read along. I'll go ahead and read the description. ID 5, Christopher Robinson, an African American man with medium locks and a seasonal beard, wears a Commonwealth Shakespeare Company sweatshirt and a hat, dapping up Via, a hard of hearing mixed Latinx with olive skin and dark brown curly hair, who wears a purple Vox shirt, black pants, lanyard, and clear glasses. Their hands are interlocked and also form the ASL sign for partnership or collaboration. Behind them is the set at the top of the show, which feature many large gray crates and old doors. So a few things to note about this photo. Number one, it was taken in a series of photos for Shake's production of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And you'll see that Chris's description is put in brackets there because it was already written about in ID1. So that's tip number one for you. Once I have someone's full description already mentioned, I can skip it for subsequent photos in the series. Things that might change related to an individual could be activity, background, expressions, like we looked at in the past example. So as soon as another person's introduced, in this case, me, then you put their full description. And that's why mine is not in brackets. Tip number two, this picture was taken inside of a theater on an accessible show date. We had ASL and audio description happening on that day. So as Vox, as an organization who runs accessible theater shows, or maybe you are an artist or an actor or playwright, and you want your followers to associate you with you or the work that you do at a venue, then this is a very easy and accessible way to give that context. So go ahead and tag that theater or tag that venue right there in the image description. This is a prime example of how to use accessibility as a point of engagement. I'd also like to note that I have bias here because I'm in the picture and I stayed at the event. I went to the event. So I gathered a lot of context very quickly just by being there and experiencing it. Maybe you're an organization and you have a social media person on your team. Then I'm going to say give them as much context as you can before, during, and after if you want to capture an event or program or process. This is not only going to speed up the image description, the accessibility part, but the entire social media post or campaign. Another thing to note is that to many of you on this webinar right now, Chris and I look like we're just doing a handshake. But the purpose is definitely a lot more intentional. So as a hard of hearing person who knows, hey, I know we want to promote our ASL shows. I happen to wear a Vox shirt that day. Chris is wearing a Shake shirt that day. I said, hey, let's do this sign real quick. Can we pose like this? And this is me doing the ASL sign for partnership collaboration. So that is the purpose of the photo. I wanted to show not only are we just, is it a bunch of pictures of people at the theater, but we want to show, hey, Vox and Shakes are partnered for this production, and here's our photo. So that is a cultural competency in play. I wrote the description, and I'm wearing the shirt. He's wearing the shirt. We're doing the sign, and we're doing it on the day that we are promoting our ASL shows. If the image description were to stand alone, and if you were not to access this photo at all, you can still get the same amount of context, and that is top-notch access. All right, I'm going to move on. I've mentioned cultural competency a few times, so let me go ahead and read the slide and break it down. Accessibility is a point of connection and representation. So here's why you should include race, culture, disability, gender, and identity in your image descriptions. First of all, it's going to give your users context. It's going to call people in. When we see and hear ourselves embedded in your content, we are way more likely to engage, to come back to your profile, to recommend it, to share events and resources. This is a very low cost and high reach way to exercise your community engagement, and you can do it authentically and accessibly from your keyboard. So if you include race and culture identity markers, this is a proactive way to exercise that community engagement. There's a different weight to saying theater goers versus theater goers of all ages. That's going to call certain types of people in. There's a different weight to saying, oh, we have youth in the space versus saying we have Black and brown youth in this space. It's not erasure, it's the opposite. It's being proactive. It's describing what's in your content. It's describing what's happening at your organization. There's an intention. If your cited users have access and they can see what's happening in the photo, then you want to make sure that people who are using image descriptions get that same picture. This practice is also going to upgrade your content, which your content is a representation of your mission or your message or your work, and it's going to improve your algorithm. So if you've been trying to tap into a particular community, then start posting and start engaging with content about that audience, and start posting and engaging and creating content about that audience yourself. This is a great and accessible way to do so. Do it through your image descriptions. Now, a question that comes up a lot is, what if I don't have ID for a person? And we live in a time where labels matter. And sometimes it's a point of contention. Sometimes we don't know. So I encourage you to put on your journalism hat and practice 3 C's. Consent. Make sure you have permission to have those photos. When you ask for that consent, do the second C, which is collect. Collect their self-description early on. I would avoid the assumption route, and if you can, DM them or email them. If you have their phone handy, send them a quick text. This is a easy way to collect their information. If you can't get a hold of them, Google search, find their bio, find their website, check other social media platforms. Maybe they've already been posted about, and start to build a general description of who they are. As a mixed person myself, I'm weary to say that someone is white, just white, because I've been wrong, and I have also been mislabeled. So when you're not sure, or when I'm not sure, I will DM them. And if I can't get a hold of them, I'll build a general description, keep it vague, and I will post that and then tag them and include a little message, and feel free to use this verbatim. Hey, please let me know if I should edit the description of you or keep it. And that is the 3rd C, confirm. Alrighty, I've been talking a lot, so now I'm going to turn it over to Tanya, who's going to talk about screen readers.
Thank you so much. So we generally hear screen readers a lot, but what are they? In general, they're software applications that read aloud the text displayed on a computer screen or a mobile device screen, or even a kiosk. There are examples of all 3. So imagine, for a kiosk example, for instance, an ATM machine. Anyone can plug in a pair of headphones, and now I'm talking about 1/8-inch headphones, boring old-fashioned earbuds, into an ATM machine and use the buttons. And that is a rudimentary screen reader that's built in, that is part of the software, which allows you to then go ahead and make a deposit. And this helps more than just people who are visually impaired, helps a lot of different people with various needs. So there's a screen reader on the actual iOS, or which is like a mobile side of it. There's TalkBack, which is a screen reader for Android phones. And then, of course, there's your screen readers that are available on operating systems like Windows, Mac. I will be showcasing a common Windows screen reader in just a little bit called JAWS, Job Access with Speech. That's very common on Windows, but I will drop the tidbit that if you are wondering about your own website usability, accessibility, how someone with a visual impairment might want to navigate your website, later on in the resources, this will be apparent and available for you. It's called Non-Visual Desktop Access, NVDA. It's an open source screen reader that is multi-platform, and you are able to install it for free and go ahead and test your website, navigate around, see what possible barriers there are. For instance, are all of your images including descriptions? So screen readers are essential tools for blind and low vision users, and also they're helpful for people who have information processing disabilities or learning differences. So as I mentioned, screen readers will interpret the code of a website or document. So they use HTML, JavaScript, the CSS, and they convert all of this code into spoken words without reading the gibberish, of course. They will simply read the text and they will act and react according to what your formatting is. And this is why putting things in the correct order, adding headings, lists, links, labeling your links is very important. This also helps when someone is using Braille to access, along with their screen reader, to access your website or your social media content. There are devices called Braille displays, which have a series of pins on the bottom, and those move up and down to represent Braille characters. That device can be used to track your screen reader, or a audience of members who are deafblind are able to then use purely the Braille display to access the same information that someone who is sighted or using a screen reader alone will have access to. So it all comes together in a nice top-notch access package when you do consider the screen reader functionality. Also, as I mentioned, screen readers help people navigate a website, etc. They can read all of the content on the page so they can access all the information needed, fill out forms, especially if you want them to sign up for something or purchase tickets, and they can interact with the digital world. This includes anything from performing work tasks to leisure. So the other thing worth mentioning is that I'll mention this later about alt tags, but screen readers also assist in SEO, which is generally how your website is ranking on Google, because Google looks at all of the code, how everything is nested and labeled, and the clearer you are organizing your website, the more likely it will come up in a Google search and it will be indexed better. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch gears, and I'm going to show you what a screen reader sounds like and how I can navigate a page. I'm going to go ahead and share my sound, so you might be a little bit startled, but the screen reader is going to start talking now. It sounds very robotic. All right, so again, this is JAWS. I've got it set a little bit faster for my own, because I'm reading along with my notes, and so I'm going to go ahead and slow this down.
Slower.
All right.
Escape.
You're wondering probably what that noise is. It just means that I'm entering an edit field.
Accessible.
I went to the top of the page. Now, the very first thing to mention is I and many others prefer to use headings to navigate. This is where that reference to HTML comes in from before. The headings are nested properly on this page. This is the accessible version. I will show you briefly an inaccessible version of this exact page, but for now, this is where headings really come into play.
Accessible University heading level 1 graphic.
This is a graphic, but it's also telling me it's a heading, which comes up quite commonly.
Welcome, heading level 2.
This is a nested heading level 2. It's welcome, so I can quickly jump
Bienvenido,
around.
heading level 2.
This is in a different language. It just shows you how the screen reader can shift from English to...
Of this section of the design of the heading level 2. Accesible Universidad abre paréntesis UA cierra paréntesis.
A different language.
Slower.
Oops, that's a little too slow.
Faster.
There we go.
Can you spot the barriers? Heading level 2. AU enrollment trends heading level 2. The following table shows.
So in addition to headings, I can navigate by table.
Last year span. This year span.
I'm using keyboard commands to shift around here.
Last year.
This is why when you are including data tables, it's important to test them out and make sure that they are reading as such, as opposed to a list. But really what I want to focus on because we're mentioning so many good things about images,
Accessible University heading level 1. An old brick building reflect.
is the image, the alt tags in this case. So
Group start 1 of 4.
this is a carousel of different images, and I just want to point out how the writer of this example has considered the additional text around this image and really woven in how this image relates to the rest of the web page. So listen to this image description,
Main
or this alt tag, excuse me.
group start 1 of 4. An old brick building reflected in the glass exterior of a modern building slide. A modern school. Group end 1 of 4.
A modern school is
A
the
modern
related text, and then the alt tag is describing and using similar terminology.
group end previous next button space.
In this
Tiffany
one,
group rooted in an old brick building is covered in ivy slide.
an old brick building is covered in ivy,
Rooted in its history.
and it's mentioning history. So, ivy does make you think of time passing.
Group previous next space. Previous.
I'll do one more.
Group N3 with opportunities to in the live group star main read group in the library. A long wooden bookshelf sits beneath towering stone wall slide. With opportunities to learn. Group N.
Again, the library with opportunities to learn. So that's really crucial. One more thing to mention before I switch over to the inaccessible version that I think is important is CAPTCHAs. Those are, when they're not accessible, they can prevent us from actually moving forward to the next page and performing a task, such as filling out a form or registering for something. So it's just my own personal pet peeve when these things are inaccessible. Even making it say, you are, or I am a human checkbox, and all a human has to do is check it. That is a very simple way to verify that it's a human while remaining accessible. In this case, though,
submit button, cow, pizza, car. Which of these has more than 3 letters? Edit required. Pizza.
So this is a CAPTCHA where it's asking you a question, which of these has more than 3 letters? And it's giving me options, cow, car, and pizza. So I know that pizza has, let's see, 5 letters, and the others have 3. So I would type in
selected, PP.
pizza, and then tab to the submit button.
Escape.
That's an example of an accessible CAPTCHA. Now I want to show you the inaccessible version of this website.
Links list view.
I'm bringing up a links list, which helps me navigate even faster.
Info. Inaccessible version. Enter inaccessible version visited link. Accessible unit 01 on demo site menu now 01 dem list link home. There are no headings on this page.
As you heard, this version does not have headings because it is intentionally presenting various accessibility barriers.
Visited link at link list dem list of.
I'm going to quickly show you one of the slides again, just to demonstrate that when you don't add the alternative tags, it sometimes AI will step in and give you an automatic description that may or may not make much sense.
Demo site list of 4 link list welcome. Accessible design pro of this set or be an accessible universe the descent LT chilo.
Oops.
Demo site menu list of 4.
This is where when you don't have navigation, it slows you down a little bit.
Visit link list demo site menu list of 4 items. Link about. Link at link list a modern shul.
There it is. A modern shul.
Welcome. Accessible University left parent A design problems that resolve it horizontal bienvenido. Horizontal line graphic.
This here, horizontal line graphic, is a decorative image. I'll be mentioning this briefly during the discussion on alternative text. I'm just trying to figure out where the carousel went.
Demo list of 4 link home. Visit link list demos list of 4 link about. Link visit list a modern welcome. A modern shul.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, accessible design problems that resolve it or be the descent teach envy or there or table and graduate table horizontal.
It seems like it's not here. It probably is hidden from the screen reader in this case. But the thing to mention that I was trying to showcase is that sometimes when there are graphics.
Creative Commons license wrapping the top. one on horizontal line graphic. one on.
Here's an example. When there are sometimes graphics, they are presented with a default file name value or a bunch of strings of numbers and characters.
Excel 123,456,789.gif to get missing image descript.
So that is I would think probably a logo of some sort, and it's just reading me a series of numbers. So that doesn't actually help me understand kind of what's going on, and I lose the context a little bit.
JAWS.
So
Tap
that
screen
said,
sharing.
I'm going to
Alt S.
pause sharing and move on to the next slide and talk about alternative tags. 1 second. Okay. So let's talk about alternative text. I've been mentioning it quite a bit. So it's the textual representation of an image online or on your mobile device. This is literally what screen readers will read to you when they come across an image, or what loads if an image is blocked, or if a user has a slow internet connection. So the screen reader tells the user what's contained in the image and its purpose. Think about that example I mentioned just now with the university website where we were learning about the library being in the image and then the learning being discussed. So we know what the purpose is and how it connects right away. Going back to the image loading slower sometimes, another fun fact is if you hover over an image, the alternative text sometimes will show up. So you can even go ahead and look at other people's social media, other people's content, and just see what's being presented and think about some examples that you think are being thoughtful, where people are really putting this effort in, and some where you're like, well, I'm not sure all the details are there. And just that exercise of trying to recognize these things subconsciously can even help you as you're crafting these for your own content. So I should mention alternative text is a minimum accessibility standard for websites, social media, and emails. Having it available on necessary images ensures that all users, regardless of their disability or visual impairment, can access the content on your website or in your posts. Also, I mentioned search engines earlier. These also use alt text when scanning pages to deliver better results for those looking for information on your website. So keywords, think of related content. People might find you if they type in a question a lot easier. So as we were discussing earlier with image descriptions, alt text is a little bit different. It's embedded in the content, and it's usually concise, functional, and it's not very long. On the other hand, image descriptions live in the captions and or comments. They should provide context and details around the person, as well as how what is relevant in the background, as Via was eloquently explaining earlier. So for me, for instance, I might say that in my image description, from a cultural competency standpoint, I would want people to include that I'm from Serbia, in addition to me being white, for instance, because that's not the only thing that I identify as. So self-descriptions, as we mentioned, they live in the comments and or captions. And then alt text generally is considered kind of a backstage because it's a little bit behind the scenes, but it's equally as important. So when you're considering cultural competency, it's always important. I just want to reiterate that it is crucial to ask the people being depicted or the media content creator which description terms they prefer and what pronouns they use. I want to go over a couple of things on the slide here about writing effective alt text, jumping back to alt text. As I mentioned, these descriptions are very concise. So being specific while also being descriptive is important, and it's just a matter of word choice there. Keep it concise, under 125 characters. Consider the context of the image So what information is important for the user to know? I mentioned earlier decorative images, so it's important that those are hidden from the screen reader. In the example I showed where the screen reader was accessing the inaccessible version, it was read as a divider line, and that's not necessarily very useful since if it was accessible, I'd be relying on headings anyway. And so there is an alt null attribute that you can apply. So I'd like to go to the next slide and just show you a quick description, a quick example of an alternative text of an image versus the image description. So in this case, it's the alt text is diverse crowd enjoying outdoor concert in park, band on stage, people clapping and smiling. That's pretty concise. It's brief. It accurately describes the key visual elements and it provides context. It avoids unnecessary words. And then versus, I'll read just the beginning of this image description since it is rather long and you can always revisit it later. So this is, it provides a little bit more kind of nuance, emotional nuance to it. A vibrant scene from our free community concert in Elm Park. The photo captures a sunny afternoon with a diverse crowd of all ages, including people using wheelchairs, enjoying the music. A local band plays on a small wooden stage in the back, and so forth. And now moving on to the next slide. Camel case, emojis, and hashtags with screen readers. You might be wondering, what is camel case? It's the practice of writing phrases without spaces or punctuation and with capitalized words. The format indicates the first word starting with either case, then the following words having an initial cap. For clarity, it's important for hashtags and longer URLs to include camel case so that the screen reader doesn't sound like it's running the words together. They can easily, users like myself, we can more easily understand what's being read and what the intent is there. I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Excessive use of camel case, emojis, and hashtags also can disrupt the flow and meaning of the text. So if you've got a giant, like I'll show you an example in just one moment, but with long examples that have a combination of these three things, it reads as a giant sentence. It doesn't have any punctuation, and it can be really sort of distracting. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen just so you can hear what this sounds like, both of these examples. I'm just double checking my sound. Okay.
New. Example dash notepad. Slower. Blank. Number part blank.
So this first example is going to be the camel case and how it's important, how it really helps a user understand the words that comprise it.
Number accessible social media.
And then the second,
This is a long URL.
if this was run together, it would read it as gibberish. And then we've got a longer example that has emojis, hashtags, and some camel case in there. And you'll notice that the screen reader reads a hashtag as a number in this case. Anyway, here it is.
We're so excited for the Number Lowell concert happening soon. Musical note, number registration link in bio. Hamburger, there will be food available and number pets are allowed. Dog face, see you then. Number free concert, number art and mass.
So that's quite a mouthful.
Screen sharing meeting call test.
And so as you can see, when there's a lot of engaging content there, but if you just put the small time and effort into making those easier to process with the screen reader, it makes such a difference for everyone, including search engines. And now I'm going to hand it back to Olivia, who's going to take us into captions.
Great. Thank you, Tanya. So when I talk about captions, these are going to be the words that come up when there's audio or someone signing. I'll read out my equation I have written on the top here. Auto-generated captions are better than no captions, but edited captions are best. Users who might rely on captions to consume media will be myself, my community, deaf and hard of hearing folks, as well as other people with disabilities, including audio processing disorders, ADHD, neurodiversity. That also includes multilingual users, particularly users whose first language is not the one being spoken or signed in the content. Captions, for many of us, can serve as visual reinforcement, and they're becoming more and more common on all types of media, not just news, not just interviews, but I see them in stand-up comedy clips, announcements, all types of things. Verizon Media conducted a study about 4 or 5 years ago that about an average of 70% of the cited users, about 5,000 people who were tested, consume their content with no audio at all. And this is primarily because of how and where we are consuming media. First off, we are consuming more short form content in very quick formats. And this is why the nature of our feeds and algorithms are changing. Users are less likely to follow a profile based on visiting that page. They're more likely to follow a profile because they engaged with the piece of content that was pushed or boosted on their feed. And this is often called suggested for you, or the for you page you might have heard on TikTok. So people are more likely to engage with profiles based on the suggested more than just the page itself. And we are scrolling in public places. So we may not always have headphones. We may not always have full attention. Our attention is way more divided these days. The short form scrolling I mentioned, it's in the form of YouTube Shorts, of Instagram and Facebook Reels, TikTok, right, as an app as its own. And now I'm seeing it on LinkedIn. So you can now find that continuous feed feature on LinkedIn. And I think it's going to continue trending in that direction. And as a hard of hearing person who works in PR and arts and of my age, I'm using social media for everything. I'm sending events to my friends. I'm visiting other nonprofit pages to see what type of content they're posting. So I'm using it for work, for social, and for personal. But I will tell you, I will not really engage with content if there's speaking but no captions. And I will notice the quality of those captions right away, whether they're there and they're not very good or if they're not there at all. I'm going to keep scrolling. And from a marketing standpoint, I'm certainly not going to share those videos that aren't captioned. I'm less likely to engage with it in the future. And this just speaks to how professionalism can be exercised in the way you design, in the way that you brand and put captions on your stuff. So you can achieve this through these accessible features that we're talking about today. So here's the rundown of accessible captions. First off, you're going to want to use a high contrast background. Dark background, light font. A color contrast corrector, we have a link for you in the resource page at the end of this presentation. On Instagram and Facebook, there are some auto-generated caption features you can use, but you can go in and edit it later. If you feel inclined to use special features on captions, so some people will use words and they'll light up as people say them, or they'll appear as they're being said. Visually, you want to make sure they're not too busy. Standard black and white I like to use. And if you want to get creative with it and use different colors, use it where it might make sense. Stick with a consistent and appropriate font size and type. Maybe there's a joke or an emphasis point in the speaking or in the signing. Maybe someone says the word long with a bunch of O's, or there's a big announcement and you want to use all caps. Use it where it makes sense. You can use it at a point of emphasis, but in the name of access, please use a black background and light text, preferably white text. Spacing is something that's actually more of a problem than the color issue that I see. And the first point to that is these apps update very often. So the little buttons and where share, like, comment, caption, they're moving every time these apps update. And so the entire side and bottom of the screen ends up being a gamble. So consider lifting up your captions closer towards the center of your content. Otherwise, they get lost and overlap. Another note is to make sure that your account settings allow those auto-generated features. You can toggle that on in your profile settings. And this sort of speaks to the broader sense. If you, I wouldn't put anything important on the bottom or the side in your content. Make sure it's in the center so that it doesn't get lost. I have an example here. So this is a screenshot from a reel that I posted on our Facebook page. It is a Dazzle promo video for a theater show. In other words, it's a deaf artist and consultant who worked with an ASL team. In the video, she's signing in front of a clean background, and she's summing up some themes of the story, letting folks know about when these ASL performances are happening and how to get tickets. So, number one, having videos in ASL with captions is a clear way to reach your deaf audience. So if you have a deaf-friendly event, have a deaf person on camera signing about your event. That's my hot tip for you. And while the virtual or portrait style videos are more popular in the way that things are formatted now, as I mentioned, I prefer horizontal. And in this example, it is. And the reason I like it is because check out all this negative space I have. On top, I have black space and I'm able to put my captions in white text, which are moving along as she's signing. And on the bottom, I'm able to put the ticket link in orange text, which stays static throughout the video. We also had her point at the bottom to an imaginary link. So when we recorded this video, we had captions and text in mind for the content. There's one imperfection in here that I'll bring up, and it's that the text on the bottom is a little bit lower than I'd like. So one secret about this content is that I edited it on Instagram and I did the double post feature, which is add to Facebook page. And this is how it showed up on desktop. So if I got to do it over, I would try and inch it up closer to the center. And when you do these practices, you may not get it right the first time. Clearly I mess up too, and I do this all the time. Another secret behind this example is that if you go to our Facebook page, find this post, you'll hear my voice doing the interpretation of the deaf signer. And while this post is geared for deaf, hard of hearing audiences to let them know about ASL performances, the post is still accessible to blind and low vision folks because it has voiceover. And if you go in, watch the reel, click in our comments, you'll see a descriptive transcript in the comments, which has visually and audibly what's happening in this reel. All right. To wrap it up, couple tips. Like I mentioned, you want to toggle these features on. You can find these in advanced settings for most platforms. Something that Tanya and I have been chatting about is that the alt text function on Facebook and Instagram is not consistent. We call it broken because it's not functioning as it should. So all the more reason to practice your image descriptions and put those in the content of comments of your content. Please refrain from using flashing or fast-moving graphics unless it's the intention of the art that you might be posting. It's very hard to absorb information from content that is fast-moving or flashing. As you can already tell, accessible social media and accessibility in general, it's very detail-oriented. So context is your friend. Collect as much of it as you can, and it will streamline your process. Make those checklists like I did in the beginning, and have patience because you're not going to get it all in one go, and you will mess up, and it's okay. I recommend rolling out these features as you go. So maybe you're on this webinar and you are a social media marketing person and you're like, how am I going to do all this? Roll it out as you go. Maybe start with alt text one week and then start folding in others. Have community members at the center of this content. Maybe you are creating content in a different language. Have a native speaker. Have them co-create and check. The same goes for sign language interpretation. Have a deaf person at the center of your announcement when you want to reach out to these communities. Another thing that I also want to note is, we notice when you try, and I will comment on people's videos and say, love the captions, keep it up. One example is if you're a fan of WBZ Radio, I enjoy watching Matt Shearer's reels on Instagram, and I've noticed that they've changed the way they're formatting their captions. Some videos look better than others, but that's community feedback in real time. And if all of this is still overwhelming, or maybe you're revved up and excited and you want to jump into it, whether it's your social media platforms or maybe it's your website, consider hiring a consultant, a community member, a community expert to do an audit of your socials and co-create and help you reach these audiences. And well, this is our resource checklist. It's ongoing and but still pretty comprehensive. And we have our contact information if you'd like to reach out to us.
Olivia, there are a number of questions. There are a few in the chat. A lot of them for you, Olivia. There is a question for Tanya that I'll read. And then we do have one person that wants to ask a question in ASL. So I'll start with this first question, and then maybe we can go to the person that wants to ask in ASL, if that works.
Sure. Great.
Okay. So question for Tanya. I've noticed some accounts, like Lonnie Friedman, for example, adding short image descriptions to Instagram stories. What do you know or think about this practice and its intention?
I'm not a huge browser of Instagram stories. I think it makes sense since I'd be curious to know what generally the Instagram stories are not very clear to me when I'm trying to access them. So I can see how this would be extremely valuable and useful.
Okay. And now Eric, who wanted to, ooh, let me find him again.
I also see that Caroline has a hand up.
Okay.
Can I
Okay.
orally add to that question?
Sure.
This is Carolyn speaking. And Tanya, I was just wondering, could you clarify, like when you say you
If
could
we
see
want,
it?
it looks like Eric is trying to, sorry, it looked like Eric was trying to sign. So if Eric, maybe if you want to wait one moment for Caroline to finish her question.
Thank you so much.
Sorry
Just when
about
you
that.
say you could imagine it being really helpful, can you explain why? Because screen readers are really, from my experience, not sometimes they read out text on stories and sometimes they don't. So as a low vision blind person, how would having an image description on an Instagram story help you, for example? I'm just trying to understand the practice better. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't really know how to answer the question because I ignore Instagram stories and I don't generally as a user, I skip past them and I don't even try to interact with them. So I'm not sure that's very helpful, but I agree with you that they're generally, in my experience, they have not been very easy to access.
Okay. All right. I think we are ready for Eric's question.
Okay, great. Make sure I'm ready to go. Okay. I am a white-skinned male with brown hair and a full beard mustache. I am wearing a hoodie. I have a question. Let me give you a little bit of background for, I am involved with a creative organization. And I really appreciate this presentation. I have a few questions. One in terms of accessibility and resources and interactions. I'm wondering, hold on one moment. Hold on. I need to, so I have several questions. Can I ask one or can I ask several?
I think for time, ask your most important question.
Okay.
We'll have other information to share with you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so one of my big questions is related to HTML, and there are so many different layers of Linus and coding and how you can structure that and pop-ups and hidden things and all of that, the technology and the coding. What is best practice in terms of accessibility for screen readers with all of that? That's one of the concerns that I have. Is there a concern, you know, what is the best way to access that? So how would that work?
I think this is a good place to say that, you know, that this can get quite overwhelming very quickly. So it's as long as you are one by one trying to think about some of these challenges and either working with the developer of the website or other companies to help remediate, that's the best way to move forward. But also in terms of a social media publication or a newsletter, in that case, for instance, Think Outside the Vox has an amazing example of this where they offer a plain text version. And Via, I think you would be the best person to elaborate on this. I have certainly taken advantage of this as a screen reader user, and this is a all text version, not alt text, but all text. Everything is in text. I'm able to access the entire newsletter, minus the visuals, and read everything from top to bottom. So if you're looking for a low code solution for a newsletter or an email blast, something where you're concerned about HTML, this could be a good way to go.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, Tanya, I wanted to add, and I know we're just about out of time, and hopefully this could answer a little bit of what you mentioned, Caroline, about captions. In my work with Vox, I have been exploring accessible formats to provide transcripts on videos. Google Drive has been my friend. So when we post videos, we will put the transcript as a Google Doc file link in our bios, in a link tree that lives on our profile. So Google Docs has been a good way to also provide plain text versions of the newsletter, like Tanya mentioned. We use sender.net, SENDER.net, as an accessible platform. It's not the prettiest of all newsletter like platforms, I guess. But it's accessible. And we also make sure to use the color contrast checker, which is also on our resource page. So in terms of captions, I certainly, if you can plug an audio file into Otter AI is a great transcription site. I've found out that Slack, if your company uses Slack or you have access to an account there, if you upload a video or an audio file, it'll transcribe it for you, sometimes with timestamps. And I also reiterate going back to the creator or the subjects in your content to say, hey, can you clarify what you said? Because the context will clear up your confusion and it will streamline your process. So if your work is really remote, spend those extra 5 minutes on Zoom or however you're connecting to clarify those things, and use AI note takers to keep track of things, because it ends up being a lot. So I have these living libraries of self-descriptions, of all posts that we've done, of image descriptions, so that I'm able to hit Command F and find it in the doc, drag it over, and use that type of thing. But yeah, that was a bit of a ramble. But like we mentioned, these slides are available to you. We just ask that you email us and we will send them. We have a ton of resources. Tanya is an expert on I'd say the HTML, more the tech savvy side of things than I am, and I'm happy to offer a bit more about on Instagram stories and how to leverage these different features and kind of wrestle with some of the access stuff on socials. So definitely reach out to us, and here's my plug. Go to Think Outside the Vox's social media pages and see everything kind of in action all at once. So yeah, please stalk that page. But yeah. Thank you for your questions, everyone.
Great. Thank you. So if people have more questions, they can email either you, Olivia, or you, Tanya, and ask those. Okay, great. We will send out an email. I'll include Tanya and Olivia's emails in that as well, in case you weren't able to grab them just now. We'll include a link to the recording, and I will also include a short survey as well, that we'd love to hear what you thought about this session. Thank you both so much, Olivia, Tanya. Thank you, Julie and Amy, for interpreting. And have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Great time.